Diffusion, the International Science Radio Show.
So I'm Sam Dyer. I've a pretty diverse background in both the technical side of science and the commercial side of science. I come from a cancer research background at the Centre for Cancer Biology here in Adelaide. I now work more on the commercial side for a DNA sequencing company that was spun out of Oxford University over in the UK. Pretty cutting edge tech and pretty exciting. So that's probably a nice lowdown on what I do.
Fantastic. So, Sam, you're one of the young scientists that were selected for the science comedy training, and you've been performing your science comedy stand-up act in Adelaide.
Yes, absolutely. And it was quite exciting to be involved. There were about 15 of us across a number of days, and quite a diverse range of science presented, and a little bit of comedy as well, of course. Always nice to get the laughters up.
Is it a change for you? Were you doing some comedy before?
I've never done comedy before, apart from bantering around with friends and family. I've definitely presented in front of quite a diverse range of audiences over time, MC events and so forth. For the first comedy gig, so it was quite interesting. I quite enjoyed it. I do like to make people laugh, and I love good science. So it was really nice to have the two intertwined and sellout crowd and all of that. So it made for a nice jovial audience on the day.
And how did you get involved with the comedy?
So they approached me. The Sydney comedy group approached me. I think they found my name on the Science in the Pub Adelaide website. So for quite some years, I was involved as a volunteer for them, coordinating activities for events we would put on every month. It's still ongoing. I had to bow out for basically a number of other time-competing pressures a couple of years ago, but still in touch with a lot of the organisers, a lot of very good scientists. And so I was occasional MC there as well. We do.
Oh, what happened? Did you get attacked
the
by a light or something?
nearly taken me out.
Oh no!
Close. The light has just fallen on my head.
You okay?
Well, that's comedy for you. Yeah, I'm all good, and the light is the bulb is fine. It's just the outer.
The cover.
Yeah, these sort of freak moments. It's amazing. But if I was just sitting a little bit further in,
the way it went.
So, so where were we?
So you were explaining how you were contacted by the Sydney Comedy School to do the workshops and train up to talk about your science in a funny way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought it would be something really good. I mean, I always welcome opportunities to be engaged, particularly in the science world. And as part of my job, I interact quite a bit with quite a diverse range of science, particularly in the biological science area. So there was quite a good turnout as well in the crowd of friends and family who were there supporting and all of that, as I think everyone did have. So we're not quite Tom Gleeson yet in terms of comedy, but
so you did it. Did you only perform once?
Only once. Some of them performed a couple of times. The call did go out once we realised how popular it was, and that the bookings were going away like hotcakes. But I, due to time pressures as well, unfortunately, I couldn't commit to a second show, so it was just the one. Definitely, if opportunities present themselves again, perhaps next year or some other venues, then by all means, I thoroughly enjoyed it. And apparently, apart from the official video, a number of friends took some other videos, and they've been circulating around. And people I barely even know have said, "Oh, we heard you were doing blah blah blah, and we've seen this." So it's exciting.
That's terrific. Do you think you might bring it to your Science in the Pub in the future?
I think it's I'm no longer volunteering there directly, but it's certainly a format that I think could go quite well. and certainly worth pitching to the guys there. It hadn't occurred to me until this moment, and I think it's a really good idea. So maybe next time I'm having a chat, I should bring it up with them. So I might be able to get some people in there. There's quite a bit of overlap in terms of who presents these various different science events anyway. So it's just nice to talk about science in a way that maybe people who don't do the same type of science or don't do science at all can grasp what exactly is happening. And I mean, my friends and family that attended, they said, oh, now we finally understand what you do. So, it's nice to sort of get that science out there. I mean, science pretty much for more or less changes the world, and for people to be able to comprehend what is happening there is I believe it's quite important.
And did you
And if they
find
can have
that
a good time along the way, why not?
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. And did you find that it was a challenge to make medical things funny?
Uh, Somewhat. I mean, a little bit of artistic license used in terms of focusing on the things that maybe have some comedic humor. I mean, I talked about the fact that koalas have chlamydia, and why you should probably, certain things you should avoid doing with koalas, and and how our sequencing technologies can help support that. Talked about paternity testing and some of the more comedic outcomes that can come out of that. So it is a matter, I think, a little bit of picking topics that will help explain the science, but will also resonate with the audience. And we did have coaching as well, which was great. So people who are already experienced in comedy take us along the way. So I do like to be quite practiced and polished before I'm doing any presentation. Certainly that was the case with this. So then, when you're up there on the day, then, it comes to you with ease. So, and I love crowds. I love presenting. I love people.
So, for the people who are in suspense, what is your area of research? What is your science?
Yes, so my area of research has covered a number of fields. So at one point I was a honeybee researcher. I actually got into the Age newspaper in Melbourne, where I was at the time. Picture of me in a bee suit. This is not a B grade movie, just day in the life of some Dyer. So, a bit of corny puns there. I ended up doing cancer research after that for some time over here in Adelaide, and I've been in Adelaide quite some time now. Love it. It's my adopted city. I've then moved to the commercial world, and so I worked quite a long time for a company best known for their DNA extraction technologies. And now, relatively recently, I've moved to a company who is very up and coming in their technology for basically third generation DNA sequencing technology, which is I like to see a bit of a difference of comparison between them and maybe some of the more established players, as sort of the difference between maybe the first computers in tech, the ones that were big and bulky and needed to fit whole rooms, versus the ones that are portable, fast, and just, very disruptive technology. You can fit more data on an iPhone now than you could on those old sort of big computers. So the company I work for now does pretty much the same thing, but in DNA sequencing technology. I don't do the DNA sequencing technology myself. I liaise with and work with on a more of a commercial side of things with a bunch of people that do that inside the company and outside the company. And that in itself is quite fascinating, because you get to hear about a very wide range of both research, scientific applications that are going on, everything from marine monitoring of conservation efforts in the ocean using environmental DNA to detect what species are there, to everything to working with clinicians, pathologists, doctors, in terms of point of care testing to
Cool.
have. Or, for example, one of the groups that we're working with is doing matching of organs between, donors and recipients, and they need to do some DNA checks on that to get the most compatible organs. So there's a lot of really exciting work going on, really exciting technology, and I think I just feel privileged to be involved in the thick of it.
It's amazing because as fast as computer technology has been developing, they're talking about things going exponential from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 to 32. My understanding
Mm.
is that DNA sequencing is faster than that. Like it's really fast, how much smaller and cheaper and better all the technology is becoming very quickly.
It is amazing, and one figure I heard going around not that long ago is the amount of data generated from bioinformatics research, including DNA sequencing, is doubling every 6 months. So you're talking about your exponential growth. So they're just crazy numbers. So it is hard for computing storage as fast as it's going at Moore's law and all that to actually keep up with the amount of data being generated. So that's where good data crunching solutions are also quite important, and that is integrated somewhat in what we have available in the company I work for. We've also been quite involved in the use of AI in terms of predictive algorithms to be more accurate in terms of predicting, and I alluded to this a little bit in my comedy skit in a bit more of a hilarious way, but in order to detect accurately what the DNA sequence is, you need to really combine AI algorithms with biomolecular approaches. So I think the two really work well together beautifully in the company I'm with.
So is that using the AI to identify particular sequences, or what is it doing?
Essentially, yeah, essentially. So at the crux of it, the technology, which is beautifully simple. I like to see it a little bit like, the LG logo, Advanced Simplicity. Not that we could obviously steal that logo, but it is. I feel it's quite advanced and yet quite simple. I mean, it's effectively we're putting the DNA strands through a very small hole, what we call a nano, not a nano hole, but a nanopore. So a pore is a tiny hole already, and that's generating an electrical current, and that electrical current has very minute, almost indetectable differences depending on what sequence of DNA is going through. So we've got algorithms that are very good that will read that very accurately, and you can get very defined sequence readouts of the DNA. So maybe getting a bit technical here, but you may have heard the DNA is basically made up of 4 different types. We assign letters as identifiers. You've got A, G, C, and T, and then there are various modifications of that as well, and it can get quite technical. And so the technology can read all of that and get some very accurate results, which is very exciting, and it's vastly different to how the tech's been done in the past. So really exciting to be working with a company doing that.
And you were talking about a connection with cancer in your comedy.
Yes, and I think all of us know someone who's been affected by cancer, either personally or through friends or relatives. And in fact, I did have a family member in the audience who had beaten prostate cancer, and I talked a bit about prostate cancer there, and he actually had quite an advanced stage as well. So it's very nice to have seen him come through it and out the other side. I think technology has helped us get a lot closer to curing more types of cancer. And I spoke a little bit about how cancer is actually each person has a unique genetic disease and set of mutations in their DNA that causes cancer that's unique to them. And understanding that through DNA sequencing allows us to do more targeted treatments. That means that people with cancer have much higher rates of survival. And so that's where the DNA sequencing interplay comes in to to cancer itself. So it's really nice to see that synergy, I think, when that comes out and when technology can help give you answers that, literally make a difference in people's lives.
It's a interesting process putting all of that into the comedy show because, well, I was thinking
Mm,
about originally, could we play some of it on the podcast? But the problem is the system that they're using is it's all it leans heavily on slideshows. So there's a visual component that
yes,
you'd have to
yeah,
rewrite some of the jokes to make it work on audio only.
exactly. And I mean, I was practiced to the point where prior to going into the show, I knew everything in my head, what slides would come up, and I could have done everything without even seeing the slides. But the slides were there as a bit of a comedy guide as well. That yes, I would have had to adjust the talk somewhat if there were no slides. Certainly, in terms of maybe some ongoing further comedy, I'd like to
Yeah,
give things a go without slides at all.
yeah,
But yeah, you're right. It's a little bit hard to maybe bring some of that across in a podcast in terms of the humor without seeing the slides in the background. I don't think there's a copyright on the video. I don't know if you have access to the full videos that
depends where you've put
were
them.
taken. Yes. So I mean, I sent you the link to one taken by a member of the audience.
Oh,
It's
right.
not very
Okay.
high
I might have.
quality, but
Yep.
but there are very high quality recordings, uh, video out
Yep.
there, and in fact, I haven't yet downloaded my link. I need to do that before it disappears.
Yes.
But I know what I said. It's just nice to have it as a record.
Yes. Sorry, it's
It's all right.
too much extra noise there from my end.
And so you're based in Sydney
I'm in
yourself?
Sydney, that's right.
Lovely,
And
lovely.
so I went through the Sydney Comedy School as well in the same
Okay.
project. We did
Mm.
Science Week, National Science Week,
Hmm.
and we also
Hmm.
did the Sydney Fringe Festival.
Oh, lovely, lovely.
Yeah.
Yes. So you know exactly about all of this.
Well, that's
You've
what I was
been
going
there
to ask
before.
you. When you look back at the video, have you seen the video? You have seen other people's video of you, at least.
I've
Have you
seen
the
my
official
video
one?
too, not the professional one, but I've seen the one taken by one of the guys in the audience, one of my friends, and
Mm.
and I sorry, what was your question? When I've
Well,
seen
the
the
question
video.
was, how did you feel watching yourself back for the first time?
Largely, I felt pretty happy. Seeing yourself and seeing, I felt that I performed well. I did seem to get a large number of laughs.
Mm.
Some of the sections I maybe got more laughs than I anticipated and weren't even meant to be particularly funny. And then maybe some sections that were meant to be very funny got less
Yes.
laughs. But
Mm.
that's all great. And successful comedians do constantly hone their material and
Yes.
what works and all of that. And so if this was an ongoing thing, it would be exciting maybe to play around with that a little bit more. But I felt it was very well received. Had a lot of people come up to me afterwards and talk about it. One fella a little bit worried about should he be touching koalas due to the chlamydia. So, clarify some things there. It'll be okay. You just
Just
don't
don't touch them the
for
wrong
certain
way.
activities. Exactly. That's pretty much it. And you hope no one's actually doing that, right? So we really hope. So no, but I mean, it was great watching the talk, and I felt comfortable
Mm.
with what I'd done. Maybe a few minor things I would have, improved incrementally, and that's a learning process, right? But overall, I was quite happy.
Oh, that's really good. I think that shows you had the right preparation and you performed the way you wanted to.
Either that, or I just didn't understand what I was missing, right?
Possibly, possibly. I mean, look, when I looked back at mine, um, I could see bits where I thought I could have emphasized things more or been a bit more over the top or
Mm,
something to
mm.
emphasize the bits that were funny. And of course, I had two performances, and my first one we had a packed room who laughed a lot, but no recording. And then when the second one we had the
Oh, no.
recording, there were just the first two rows, and the rest was empty.
Okay. Oh dear.
And
It's
they laughed
always
at
something like
slightly
that.
different places.
Mm. Yeah, interesting and different dynamics. Was it the same venue?
Different venue altogether.
Different venue, yeah, makes a difference too, doesn't it? And
Yes,
I
I think
know
so.
those of us that did have two sessions, they did it in two different venues. I visited the other venue too, and quite a different dynamic and vibe. So it's always interesting how you can sort of play to that in terms of your presentation. I do always like to suss out a venue before I'm doing any sort of presentation.
And as a scientist, how did you find the rules of comedy that you were taught about what makes things funny and how to construct jokes?
Hmm. I think it was quite eye-opening. I mean, there's some things you pick up in life just trying to be a bit of a larrikin mucking around, and there's some things that maybe you don't know as much. And so it's nice to learn, I guess, the science of comedy and be taken through that and help yourself improve to be maybe a little bit more funny in future, just around family and friends and all of that. So it's quite interesting just picking apart. I think it hadn't really occurred to me before that there were quite defined structures to comedy and how you set up and all the way through to your punchlines and all of that. So again, quite a good learning experience.
Yeah, so in our case, we were encouraged to write a straight science talk first and then apply the workshops to make it funny. Is that the process you went through?
Interesting. Not really. No, I think we tackled it a bit the other way around. We were encouraged on how to write good comedy and then to write our science into utilizing that comedy to
Mm,
do it. So that was an interesting tact, I think, and um, seemed to go okay. I think it went
that's
well.
good. I will have to watch. I'm afraid I didn't get to watch the video. I missed that you
That's
included the
okay.
link.
Yes, feel free to have a look.
Mm,
It's I think particularly the first half is quite enjoyable. That's probably where most of the laughs are, and then you start to get down a little bit more serious, and which was a point of it as well. We wanted to cover some comedy and some science,
mm,
and so
mm.
yeah, but
So do you think
I think you'll enjoy it.
the individual bits would go on their own, or is it's written as a whole so that
I
you really have to get
definitely
it in
could go
context?
definitely would go on their own, and I wrote it with that intention. So there's essentially a setup, the intro, bit of a detail about the fallacy of false information and why you
Mm,
need good information to make good decisions. Then there's a three-part section, each that is good as a standalone, where first I talk about forensics applications, particularly
mm,
paternity, and relate that in a bit of a humorous way around working out whether my daughter is adopted or not, and then having to go and tell her, oh, not yet. And then there's several layers to that the audience
right.
quite enjoyed. Then I talk about koalas and how cute they are, but then chlamydia and please don't touch them inappropriately, essentially. So, and then I move on to looking at genetic diseases and especially cancer, which is actually a genetic disease, and the applications of that. And then I pretty much just have a wrap up at the end. So, I mean, that's in terms of not even just comedy, in terms of general presentation structures. It's quite a good structure to go. It's often referred to as
Mm,
the rule of threes, and
yes.
it means you can have standalone segments that people can relate to that don't really need a separate. Uh, you don't need to have the whole thing for it to make sense,
Mm,
essentially.
mm. Well, congratulations on your performance and going through the whole process,
Thank you.
because it's
Thank you.
quite an adventure, isn't it?
It is absolutely very much an adventure and very much good fun. It does also mean that I'm now considered an artist in the Adelaide Fringe, and that gets me access to the coveted Fringe Club, which is quite exciting, and you can bring in friends. So it's It's
Nice.
nice to be involved. It's my first year officially in the Fringe, not just watching other people in the Fringe.
Yes.
So that was not. I didn't do it for that, but it's a nice bonus. I just did it for the kicks and the laughter, and because I love science and I love trying to be funny and all of that. And thanks for the opportunity to have a bit of a chat as well with you. So
Oh, look,
really
it's
enjoyed
it's
this as well,
really
actually.
interesting. It's great to meet you, and it's really interesting to hear it. I mean, normally I would have gone, more into the science and things, but it's I think it's better to have a conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm inclined to agree. So I'm conscious of time. I don't know how
Mm.
much longer you have. Did you have
Oh,
any other
yeah. Well,
questions
I
for
was
me?
funny. The question I was going to ask was there anything you wanted to talk about that I haven't asked you?
I think we've pretty much covered everything in the course of the conversation.
Mhm.
What I covered off and why science is important to me, as well as, you know, it's important to have a bit of a laugh and
Mm.
enjoy life. Really, that's what I'm all about, I think. So,
All
uh,
right. Well, then,
yes, yeah.
Sam, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And if you have any other questions, I'm sure we can stay in touch.
That's great. Thank you so much.